Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session on joint efforts for better legislation for animals in the EU. Today, we will hear about two important new campaigns, No Animal Left Behind and EU for Animals. Both campaigns aim for strengthening the EU's position on animal welfare. No Animal Left Behind aims at convincing the Commission to ambitiously review all the animal welfare legislation related to the farm animals as part of the ongoing fitness check process. The EU for Animals campaign is calling for the explicit mention of animal welfare in the job title of the new relevant EU Commissioner. In the present context, the Commissioner's responsibility would become for health, food safety, and animal welfare. Before we start, let me just share some quick housekeeping rules. This meeting is streamed live on Facebook. There is no interpretation. All those who wish to intervene are invited to speak in English. Please keep yourself muted during the meeting. Please add your questions using the Q&A function, and they will be addressed at the end of each presentation, which will be moderated by Heineke Amerlins and Andreas Erler from Eurogroup for Animals. If you are an MEP and you wish to take the floor, please let us know by using the chat box or raise your hand if the function is available to you. The webinar will be recorded, the video recording and presentations will be published on the Intergroup website after the session. So I would like to introduce you our first speaker, Reineke Amerlins, CEO of Eurogroup for Animals. Reineke will present the No Animal Left Behind campaign launched by Eurogroup this Monday. Dear Reineke, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Francisco, and I will share my screen with you, so please bear with me a couple of seconds. So good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to present to you today Eurogroup for Animals' brand new campaign, No Animal Left Behind. Indeed, 2021 brings a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because we have until September to persuade the European Commission to undertake a complete review of all legislation that affects farmed animals in the EU. So the countdown has begun, and we invite you all to become part of this important journey to deliver this long overdue change for animals. So we proudly present this campaign to you today on behalf of Eurogroup for Animals' 70 member organizations in 28 countries in Europe and beyond. And over the coming month, they will reach out to all their 10 millions of supporters and mobilize them to call on the European Commission to leave no animal behind. And let me start by explaining to you why this campaign is so important. So as you all know, we have this very strong Article 13 in the Lisbon Treaty saying that animals are sentient beings and that the Union shall pay full regard to their welfare requirements. And the Lisbon Treaty came into effect in 2009. Yet in all those 22 years, we have not seen European Union legislation actually acknowledging animals as sentient creatures. And then we have the Council Directive 98/58, also called the General Farming Directive, stating that animals should not be inflicted any unnecessary pain, suffering, or injury. But despite all these beautiful provisions in the treaty and other legislation, we are facing a true animal welfare crisis. As we speak, and I'm sure you have all seen this, and we will hear more about it later in today's session, we are being confronted with one of the biggest tragedies ever, with the almost 3,000 cattle on the Karimala and the El Beik vessels having been at sea for almost 3 months, showcasing how the EU is still treating animals as commodities, disposable items, and products. And we are witnessing new investigations on how our food production system is maltreating animals on a weekly basis. Clearly, the existing legislation is failing animals, and most animals are living extremely miserable lives. So on top of that, the vast majority of animals kept in the EU has not been protected by any legislation. And you can see these forgotten animals highlighted in blue here. And it is quite hard to grasp why most farm species, such as fish, rabbits, turkeys, ducks, and bovines, are not protected by any EU legislation, whereas they are so numerous. But as you know, fresh hope is on the horizon. After a stalemate of 10 years, the European Commission committed last year to start revising the animal welfare legislation. And as part of its ongoing fitness check process, it will decide this year what legislation it is going to prioritize. And we must make sure that a full-scale review will take place and that our demands for the best possible welfare standards are heard and that no animal is left behind. So until September, we will feature every month a new key demand outlining the shortcomings of the current system and present the solutions, because the solutions are numerous. And in general, we believe that the new laws must do much more than to protect animals from neglect and cruelty and to minimize their suffering. Animals deserve to live a good life and experience a positive state of health and well-being. And these 7 demands are based on the 5 domains model from scientists David Miller and Cam Wright. And this model represents a much more up-to-date scientific standard than the 5 freedoms as currently incorporated in the Generic Farming Directive. And let me briefly zoom in on each demand. So the first one relates to good health. Every animal should be healthy, fit, and whole. For example, no animal should be deliberately mutilated, as is routinely happening in pig and poultry farming. No animal should suffer from deformities because they have been bred to produce fast meat, or become sick because of high densities, as we see with lice issues in salmon farming, as you can see here on the slide. Almost all health issues in current farming are due to the shortcomings of the system. And we believe that the new legislation should ensure robust breeding, appropriate accommodation, much more prevention, and no aversive experience. Then turning to the second demand, this demand is all about providing a good environment. And what we mean by that is that animals need space and should not be physically restricted without natural light or fresh air, too hot or too cold, or living in filth, as is currently the case. No animal should be kept in a cage, as is still the norm in many farm systems. And in this respect, this campaign also includes all the calls from the European Citizens Initiative and the KHH. Scientists agree that when animals have control over how and where they spend their time, their well-being increases. So a good environment is of vital importance. Turning to the third demand, the new legislation needs to seriously reduce transport duration and end live exports. As you very well know, animal transport constitutes one of the biggest animal welfare scandals of our times, as it is highly stressful for the animals, and every welfare expert is opposed to it. And our demand is that the EU bans all long-distance journeys for farmed animals, and on top of that, introduces bespoke rules for pigs, fish, cattle, sheep, rabbits, chickens, etc., to limit their suffering on all the other unavoidable journeys. But in general, we believe that live transport needs to be significantly reduced. So our fourth demand is about that every animal should be able to express their natural behavior. We need to make the system fit the animal needs and not the other way around, as is currently happening, as most animals are confined. They have no access to outdoors and very little enrichment. Or, as you can see here on the slide, calves are separated from their mother straight after their birth, breaching the very essence of the mother-calf bond. Animals just need space, proper facilities, appropriate social groupings, and opportunities to engage in natural activities, such as calves staying with their mothers. And the good news is that the legislators can draw a lot of inspiration from best practices that are already in place. Our fifth demand is about good nutrition. Currently, some animals are, for example, being starved because they produce more, such as the case for broiler parents. And other animals are being overfed to fatten them up as fast as possible, as is the case with force feeding for geese and ducks, for example. However, the act of feeding should be a pleasurable experience. If they had the choice, most animals would spend many hours rooting, grazing, browsing, foraging, and feeding. And encouraging animals to express these behaviors through thoughtful husbandry is vital to their well-being. So our sixth demand is the culmination and the result of all the other demands I just presented to you, because welfare is not only about being healthy and expressing natural behaviors. It's also about animals being able to have a positive mental experience. And this is the demand that truly embraces and acknowledges that animals are those sentient beings as enshrined in our treaty. And our new legislation needs to ensure living spaces that add pleasure and interest and choice to the everyday of the animals, that feed curious minds and encourage connections and well-being. It's simply not enough for the animals to exist. They should thrive. So finally, the campaign will call to expand the circle of compassion, to include all farm species, including the forgotten fish, rabbits, geese, ducks, bovines, turkeys. And as Professor Donald Broom stated years ago in his report to the European Parliament about animal welfare in the EU, the lack of protection for these species is a serious anomaly which can now finally be addressed. And the more we discover about animals and their complex, intriguing lives, the more shocked we should be at how we are treating them. So here you see an overview of these crucial 7 demands that should constitute the core pillars of the revised legislation. Now, how can you help? We call on your support, dear MEPs, to show your commitment to all those citizens who are having high expectations from the EU institutions to make 2021 the year we changed the future for farm animals. And concretely, we ask you to add your photo and quote to the supporter section on the website, take a selfie and post it on social media. As you see, some of you have already done it. Please join them and ask your supporters to sign up and record a video promoting one of the demands to the Commission I just presented to you. And my team is at your disposal to advise on how we can make this happen. So do contact Andreas, Maren, or Cecilia, and we will advise on how to do this. Before I will finish by showing you the campaign video, I would like to share the countdown timeline. So this week, we are launching the campaign No Animal Left Behind, and the public mobilization phase will run till early September. And then we hope to see you all at the final event on 9th September, when we will present a scientific report and the results of the campaign to the involved commissioners. So now I'm going to share the video with you, and I hope it will all go well. So thank you so much for listening and for your support. We hope you are with us to make sure no animal is left behind. I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you so much. Back over to you, Francesco. I will stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you very much, Ranneke, for the presentation, really powerful and concise. I fully support this initiative, and I think it's very vital that until September we join forces with citizens across Europe to bring attention to this campaign and the ongoing fitness check by the European Commission. We need to make sure that no animal is left behind in the review of this legislation. Even though it is repeatedly stated that the EU has the most far-reaching animal welfare related legislation in the world, it was introduced piece by piece over the last 40 years, and we know that large parts of this legislation is outdated and hardly enforceable. We also know that there are still many gaps which leave billions of animals unprotected. So the fitness check as planned by the European Commission is a rare opportunity to achieve these objectives and to provide legislation protection for species that seem to have been forgotten. Therefore, we must make sure that the full-scale review takes place and that the campaign's demands for the best possible welfare standards for all farm animals are heard and no animal is left behind in this process. I am aware that several of my colleagues in the intergroup have already confirmed their active participation in this campaign, and I'm confident that the Animal Welfare Intergroup as a whole will provide its support. I encourage, as Ranneke also did, that all members and colleagues join forces for no animal left behind, and would like to give the floor to those who would like to make some statements or ask some questions and details regarding this initiative. So the floor is open.
So the first who asked for the floor is Mrs. Šojdrová. Please, Mrs. Šojdrová, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I am quite new member of this intergroup. Thank you very much for the presentation of this campaign, 6 demands. I fully support those 6 demands. I would like also to join this campaign. I will do some maybe video or some photo. But it is the campaign. What we need, it's really to move to reality our wishes, our demands. My question is, if the authors of this campaign, this movement is joined with farmers, with agriculture sector, because without them we cannot reach this demands. We cannot reach our goals. I'm landscape architect. I am very close on one hand to the landscape, to the agriculture sector, and on the other hand to the environmental demands. I absolutely agree with this ecological approach, green approach, but I know that we can reach it. We should achieve with agriculture, not without them. So my question is, if we have some stakeholders on our board. Thank you very much. Good luck, and with pleasure, I will cooperate. Thank you.
I would suggest that we group questions and then that our speaker, Ranneke Hammers, answers then. The next is Tilly Metz.
Yes, good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Eurogroup for this, the Intergroup for this very, very good campaign presentation. I was very touched and very happy to join and to see what you have done for this campaign. I really think it puts out the main issue, the key points, and I really like the video. Is contrastful, so it's really good. And so, congratulations! I'm very enthusiastic. Just maybe to react on my speaker before, just to say that indeed 2021 can really make the change also on action, not only on campaigning, but we have to make a lot of pressure, and I completely agree, work with all the stakeholders together, and of course with the farmers also. But as we have the animal welfare legislation review, as we have this special committee on inquiry on the protection of animal inquiry committee on the protection of animals during transport. So it's really now that we can do the change. But as always, and it was also in the video, there's a lot also of other forces. So that's why this campaign is really, really important, to put pressures that we have the citizens on our side and the different stakeholders to really make the change, because I really think 2021 is a real opportunity. So thanks a lot again for this excellent campaign and this very good video. Thank you.
So next is Eleonora Evi.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Also from my side, I really wanted to express my support to this campaign. It's very important. This year we have this big opportunity of the revision of the legislation on animal welfare, and I really want to express my full support to this campaign. And I wanted to stress the fact that, as Tilly Metz was saying, we really have to take this opportunity, because this year is the year where not only we are working on the inquiry committee on live animal transport, and so we in the parliament, we really have to make sure to stop the suffering of all these animals transported every day, but we really have to make progress also on the cage farming. And on this, I really believe that this is the time to make progresses. And no later than yesterday, we see leading food companies sending a letter to the parliament and to the commission to endorse the ECI, the European Citizen Initiative, and the cage age that has already been supported by a lot of people, 1.5 million signatures collected, and over 170 NGOs across Europe asking to adopt legislation to ban any form of cages. And yesterday, this signal is a positive signal that we have to take as a big result of the campaign that has already done by a lot of citizens, and by also us in the European Parliament. So I really hope that this year will be the year of the revision of many legislation at the European level. In particular, we have to revise the Directive 98/58 concerning the protection of animals kept for farming purposes, to really phase out the use of cages across the EU. Some member states have already done some positive step forward, but we really need to harmonize this ban. So thank you again for this campaign, and you can count on my support for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. So Niels, would you like to come in?
Yes, please, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So congratulations on the campaign to the Eurogroup for Animals. I think it looks great, and it certainly is some relevant points that you raise that we can use as guiding lines for what we work for. And I would like to support the campaign. I have one question concerning the cages that Eleonora also mentioned, because I know that there has been an initiative on ending the cage age, and there is an initiative, and I also have supported this initiative. But of course, it is a pretty some would say that it's a little bit of an extreme demand. On the other hand, it's not so extreme, because it would, of course, be better to have animals outside cages than within cages. But I think a whole lot of the farming today is done with cages. And so if we introduced this initiative, and that's what I want to ask about, how do you see that we can introduce such an initiative? What is the time frame and so on? If we introduced it tomorrow, it would probably not be so good, because then we had just to open all the cages, and then all the animals would run out, and it would be pretty chaotic. So how do you see the implementation of this idea? I myself would think that it requires a whole other kind of agriculture, which is, of course, what we want. I myself grew up on an organic farm where we had no cages, but most farms in Denmark are not organic, of course, and they use cages. But would this mean that every farm would have to be actually an organic farm where they don't use cages, or how do you see this? I would like to ask you about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Niels. So lots of interesting questions. Over to you now, Heineke, to
Thank you,
answer.
Andreas, and indeed lots of good questions there. Firstly, I would like to wholeheartedly thank you for your support and enthusiasm to make 2021 the year we change the future for farm animals. Well, I think you are all touching upon the same. How can we transform our food production system, and how can we do that in a way that we leave no animal behind, but also that we make sure that we take much better care of our climate and the environment and the people. You know, we are really looking at a more eco-centric model. And to touch upon the first question, are farmers on board? Yes, they are. There are a lot of good practices, as I said in my presentation. For example, there is an initiative in the Netherlands called the Caring Farmers, and they are really leading the way on commercially viable models in terms of livestock production and crop production. And across the EU, there are a lot of best practices we can draw inspiration from. And these will also be part of the report we will be presenting to the Commission in September, because we fully agree that we also need to take producers with us in this journey of transformation. And we have a very good tool also to incentivize them, and that is the Common Agriculture Policy. We have a lot of funding available to also prop up farmers to go through this transition and to spend a lot more on higher welfare systems, and to pick up on what you said, Niels, also to invest in cage-free models. You know, we know that farming can be done without keeping animals in cages in very close confinement, which the science has proven is totally, you know, inflicting on their welfare. So the solutions are there, but now we need a phase-out plan over the coming years, and this can be done through the new legislation, through the revision of the 98/58, to really look at, okay, how much time do we need to phase out those caged models? And that timeline will be different, of course, for each sector. It's very good that the Commission is thinking about how this can be done and how farmers can be supported through also the subsidies in place. To say something about what Eleonora said, the No Animal Left Behind campaign is really also integrating everything Eleonora mentioned on End the Cage Age. It's really focusing on the revision of the welfare legislation, because I want to say something here. It's great that the Commission has announced now that it's going to look at what legislation it is starting to revise. But we have to be very vigilant that the animals don't just end up with a bit more space, a bit more light, a toy to play with, but that it will be meaningful and transformative change. because in the past we have seen a lot of animal welfare legislation, but one can wonder to what extent this has fundamentally improved the welfare of the animals. I think the legislation we have in place may have reduced the suffering, but it has not fundamentally improved their welfare. So a last comment from my side, can I please invite you all to sign up to the campaign today? I would like to ask Maren, our mastermind of the campaign, to put the link in the chat box. So please sign the campaign today. And I think I'm handing back to you, Francesco.
Thank you, Raniki. And just a brief comment, obviously, this is also related to the pandemic that we are facing, so in the next months to come. So this is really relevant, and thank you for the Eurogroup for Animals for launching this very important campaign. So now let's move to the second part of our meeting, which will see the presentation of the campaign EU for Animals. This is an initiative by Global Action in the interest of animals, Gaia, and supported by 15 partners organizations throughout the EU. Adolfo Sansolini, the coordinator of EU for Animals, will tell us more about the campaign and the objectives to reach, which has a main objective to push the EU to integrate animal welfare in the job title of the relevant EU commissioner. Adolfo, the floor is yours.
I thank Francisco, and good morning, everyone. A brief introduction, as Francisco said, Gaia is the main Belgian organization, been around for over 30 years, is a member of Eurogroup, and has been campaigning on all kinds of animal welfare and animal rights issues with a lot of success very often. I'm a consultant and a policy advisor to various organizations, and have been working with Gaia since 2014. Today are involved in the. Why are we here today? As Reineke reminded us, Article 13 says very nice words about the animals. They are sentient beings, and the EU should pay full regard to the welfare requirements of all animals. We know that the reality is quite different. Those who are as old as me and were campaigning to include those few words, sentient beings, in the treaty, know very well that we didn't have to explain people that animals are sentient beings. It was about telling politicians the time has come to show that animals are not just agricultural products. And we know that too often, either the interests of specific sectors or political interests have undermined progress on this path, on the path to improving animal welfare. In the EU, we had a very good result in year 2000 when animal welfare, the competence for animal welfare, was moved from DG Agri to DG Sanco at the time, and then DG Sante. Now, this was a way to recognize, to acknowledge that animals were not just part of the agriculture production world, but had there was a need to protect them as such. But we know very well that this has changed many times. We had some commissions that promoted animal welfare. We welcome, like everyone else, the farm to fork strategy. But just looking back a few months, with the previous commission, even the animal welfare unit was brought under animal health. And besides a few nice words, after 20 years, we had the term of the European Commission with not a single legislative change, even where changes were clearly needed and sometimes totally inexpensive. In most member states, the competence is still under the Ministry of Agriculture. In Austria and Italy, it's under the Ministry of Health, like at the European level. In Sweden, the Ministry of Enterprise and Innovation encompasses also agriculture and animal welfare. And in Malta, there was quite recently the change of denomination into Ministry for Agriculture, Fisheries, Food, and Animal Rights. And there is a peculiar situation in Belgium, an unusual one, as it often happens with Belgium. In, the complex system with 3 ministers in the 3 regions, Flanders, Wallonia, and Brussels capital. And with the state reform in 2014, animal welfare was integrated into the job title of the ministers and the name of the ministries. These changes in the Flanders with mobility, public transport, tourism, and animal welfare. In Wallonia with environment, other issues, and when animal welfare. And in Brussels capital, I very much like the Equal Opportunities and Animal Welfare Association, but there are various issues linked together. The key point is that animal welfare is in the portfolio, in the name already, on the business card of the ministry. And it's not just a name, it's not just a change of name. It acknowledges the importance of the topic. We know that animal welfare is relevant to European citizens. We know that in the Eurobarometer or any other surveys, when European citizens are asked to mention spontaneously what they care for, animal welfare regularly is one of the main topics that Europeans want to see improving all the time. And by having the name in the name, by having animal welfare, sorry, in the name of the relevant minister, the influence of sectorial interests is limited. It doesn't become the priority to defend economic interests. The main priority is to defend the welfare of animals and find solutions also where flanking measures are necessary. And also relating again to what happened with the previous commission, it means that full-time staff and the dedicated budget are guaranteed without going backwards and making this sector disappear or just left on a side. And this also allows better control by the parliament. There is a clear competence, there is more transparency. So what do we want at the European level? We think that this change, having the animal welfare in the name of the competent commissioner and the competent DG, would be a big improvement. It would reflect what Europeans care about, would give more strength to the relevant commission DG to promote animal welfare legislation, enforcement, and also proposing new policies, legislative changes where necessary. And this should also mean that the competent commissioner would be the lead commissioner whenever a proposal that has an impact on animal welfare is tabled. And this is something that translates into, in the present setting, having a commissioner for health, food safety, and animal welfare. So we launched this campaign last week. As we will see, many MEPs have already joined and many citizens. You MEPs who are in the parliament in this period received the box that you see in the picture with the some of the environmentally friendly gadgets that we prepared. Is supported by national and international NGOs. We got social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok to reach out to all generations with EU for Animals as their main name. And this is developed in partnership, as Francisco said, with many organizations. This is a screenshot from last night, but actually there are already 2 more organizations that have joined in the meanwhile. And obviously this is a work in progress, and all the numbers of promoting organizations, citizens, and MEPs are going to grow constantly. In terms of citizens, in these 7.5 days, we have over 41,000 citizens who have already signed the petition on EU4Animals.eu. I like this screenshot where there was a sequence of different flags that pop up and show the geographical diversity of the citizens who want to support this campaign. We have to, I want to emphasize that some countries haven't even started campaigning yet because of conflicting priorities. So these 41,000 signatures are a really rewarding first step. And MEPs are already responding to this. You see the first 28 names of MEPs who have confirmed their support to the campaign. We got all political groups represented and across Europe. And on Monday, or at the beginning of next week, a new space on the website will appear. So there will be pictures of MEPs, and the ones who have already expressed their support to the campaign have received the A4 to print out that Tilly Metz, Francisco Guerrero, and Pascal Duran are showing in this picture. There will be space for statements and space for a video. We are receiving your materials as we speak. So from next week, this space will be available. It will be possible to sort out MEPs by surname, country of election, and political group. So everyone will have an individual page that will be possible to use for your own communications as well. And some MEPs have started sharing materials on social media. This is something that Mr. Ostrevicius from Lithuania got produced for his Facebook page, and maybe not many of us read Lithuanian, but so the message is about supporting and asking people to support EU for Animals. So what we are asking you to do today is obviously for everyone is to sign the petition at EU4Animals.eu. For MEPs, there is a special appeal. Please contact us, send us an email at contact@EU4Animals.eu. I will put it in the chat afterwards, because obviously we wouldn't know if you have signed the petition, but you don't let us know. So we can include you in the list. And this is more or less all for now. And I want to thank Niels Fuglsang for joining me in the presentation of this campaign, having been one of the many MEPs who have already joined this campaign from the early days. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for the intervention. Just to be short, here's the book that you sent. It was well received and will be much of a use. Well, let's pass then to the round of questions. Reineke, can we see if there's any questions for MEPs or the attendees?
There are no questions yet, but I would like to invite Niels to come in, as I know he would like to make an intervention. Niels?
Thank you, Reineke, and thank you, Adolfo, for this initiative. I think it's an important one, and I'm sure we can get the word out there, because I know you are a great campaigner, and I think it's good that you are present on many social media and other platforms, including TikTok, which I'm already too old to be engaged in. So we reach a broad audience with you, Adolfo. I just wanted to give my support to this campaign. I think it's important. From my experience working with animal welfare, and I'll tell you why I think it's important. From my experience working with animal welfare, I think we often meet the problem that nobody takes responsibility, that we cannot find the person or the organization to say, you have to act. Everybody shies away from responsibility often, much too often. In the example we have right now that you have all heard of, I'm sure, with thousands of bovines being left on a ship in just outside Spain and Greece. Some of them have been euthanized now, but they have been left there for months, and we have tried to act from the European Parliament, from our group here. We have written letters to the European Commission, to the Spanish government, to the Greek government, and nobody wants to take responsibility. The European Commission say, "Oh, it's not on our desk." The Spanish government doesn't answer, and I think it's the reason I'm mentioning this is because I think it's something we often experience, and I think the campaign from Adolfo here and from Gaia and from all the ones who support is an effort to try to tackle that problem, that nobody takes responsibility. We want a commissioner who has the title animal welfare, responsible for animal welfare, in his title, in his or her title. So we have somebody to turn to hold accountable, to say, you have to act. We insist that you act, and you cannot say that you don't have the responsibility because, well, it's in your title basically that you have the responsibility. And I think, you know, that's why it's important that we back this campaign. I also, you know, you could mention tons of other examples, I think, where people just shy away from responsibility, that the European Commission does not want to do anything, and we don't know who to hold accountable. Regarding the animal transports that where I chair the working group, I actually worked some years ago with Adolfo on the original 8 Hours campaign, and there I think the problem was the same, that we had a Maltese commissioner, John Daly, for health. He was also responsible for animal welfare, but he didn't take it serious. And even though we collected 1 million signatures and a majority in the European Parliament and presented all that to him, he didn't want to take any responsibility, and he had other concerns. And I think having a commissioner for animal welfare will not fix all our problems, obviously, but it will help us. Because then you can say this is actually on your table. I also think that the Commission of Animal Welfare is a cross-cutting issue. It should be taken into account too when we make agricultural policy, when we make environmental policy, when we make chemical policy, when we test chemicals on animals today, when we make trade agreements and so on. So we need a person who can actually have the broad view and be present in all the different negotiations to make the voice of the animal welfare concerns heard. And that's just another reason why we need this. So basically, all my support to Adolfo and the campaign on the Animal Welfare Commissioner. I hope you will back it, and I look forward to engaging in this campaign with you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Niels, for your support. And I think we have another statement from an MEP who couldn't be with us today, which Andreas will read out now. Andreas.
Yes, Mr. Viezik asked me yesterday to raise a statement he made concerning the two campaigns, and he has also a question which I will read out now. He supports both campaigns, and he fully agrees that animal welfare has not, so far not been addressed sufficiently, and that animals continue to suffer unnecessarily throughout the EU. He thinks that the younger generations will wholeheartedly support the two campaigns, but he has some concerns whether the older populations or economically and socially disadvantaged people have been addressed as well with these campaigns. And so the question is if the two campaigns will cover only online initiatives, or if there will be also an offline space for those who cannot participate in the campaign because they don't have the electronic means to do that.
That is a very valid question. Adolfo, do you have something to say to that?
Yes, and I think Niels remembers very well that this was something we started testing with 8 Hours, because there is always a temptation to leave someone behind, not always animals of other species, but people around us. With 8 Hours, we thought we can go completely online. This is modern times. We order things online. We do everything online. but actually a lot of people we realized needed a different approach. For EU for Animals, the initial bid will be online simply for organizational reasons. We are not excluding printing out some forms or the ability for people to express their support in other ways. We have to simply deal with our resources at the moment, because it would mean that we have to actually then type or manually the names, or the other way that we did with 8 hours is to risk when numbers are much higher. With 8 hours we were, as Niels reminded us, we had over 1 million signatures. We had some paper forms that we just added, but obviously we want to find ways for everyone to be engaged, and that's also why we are trying to have national groups in charge of their national campaigns so they can engage directly. And that's also why the website is in 24 languages, because sometimes language is a barrier for many people, and so everyone can actually, by clicking EU4Animals.eu, they land on their national page and they can actually understand every single thing that is on the website. But obviously more can be done, and if there is any other suggestion, we will be very happy to be more inclusive.
Thank you, Adolfo, for this explanation. And before we move on to the update on the Albique, which is nearing the port of Cartagena, I would like to invite Anja, who has joined us now, also for a statement on the EU Commissioner's campaign. Anja. It would help if you unmute yourself.
Sorry, always a problem. I'm sorry that I couldn't attend the whole meeting, but I'm very happy to join you now. I think the Animal Welfare Commissioner is a very good idea. Because as Niels already mentioned, it's always unclear who is responsible. And we see always a back and forth game with the member states and the European Commission. It is so, the member states always say, well, we want to act, but on a European level. The European Commission says it's up to the member states, so we can't do anything. And in the meantime, the animals are still suffering and nobody is really acting. Also within the European Commission itself, it is quite unclear who is responsible for animal welfare. Sometimes we hear the Agri Commissioner, sometimes we hear the MV Commissioners. So I think when we have an Animal Welfare Commissioner, it is at least clear who is responsible. And it is definitely going to help us improve the welfare of animals. So I want to thank Adolfo and Gaia, and I fully support this campaign, and I wish you all the luck with it. Just one question. Is it too soon to say that I'm available for this position, or can we still wait a bit? Thank you.
The Dutch are never shy. Huh? Thank you so much, Anja. I'm sure you would be available. All right, Francesco, I think that our speakers for the update on the Albique situation in Spain have joined us now. So I'm handing back to you to introduce them.
Yes, thank you, Ranki. Well, as you said, before moving to the final discussion, I think it's important to touch upon the current situation of the two Spanish vessels carrying almost 2,000 male bovines. We all know about this concession, and I think it's very, very important to hear Maria Boada, the project manager of AWF, which will give us a brief update on the vessel Albique. If I'm not mistaken, I think I pronounced it well. Maria, please, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting. So it seems that we are right now at the last stage of the long odyssey of these animals, and also for the crew members, I want to say, of the vessel Albique. So only to summarize a bit, on Tuesday night, the vessel received an order from the Spanish Transport and Mobility Ministry to immediately come back to Cartagena port to be able to inspect the health and the welfare condition of the animals, okay? And we know that the captain and the organizer officially, they accepted to collaborate and they will accept official veterinaries to go on board to inspect the animals. But what we know is that they are now strongly requesting to the Spanish authorities with their lawyers to authorize them also to analyze the animals from the blue tongue and foot-mouth disease with official laboratory and with the supervision of the Spanish competent authorities to verify if the animals are really infected or not, which at the end is at the beginning of all this mess, okay? So what is happening now is that right now the vessel is going to Cartagena. They will arrive probably this night at the port. And yesterday the captain already informed officially that 179 animals died already. And it seems that also they have some animals that may not survive the next 2 days. I don't know the exact number, but it seems that a lot of animals are not in proper conditions to survive. So the question now is what will happen now with these still calves that are on board, that we are talking about 1,600 animals. So what can happen is that after the official vets will complete the inspection of the animals, we have only two possibilities. The animals can be declared not fit to be transported, and therefore all the animals will be euthanized at the port, as it happens already with the animals from Karimala. Or also it's possible that the animals are declared fit for transport and they are declared free from blue tongue and foot-mouth disease. And if that is the case, the animals can receive a new certificate approval and can continue the journey with the same vessel till Libya, a country that officially we know that already accepted to buy these animals. So we need to understand that this also is a possibility. I see it quite difficult because I'm sure that the animals are not in proper conditions, but it's a possibility. So I only wanted to explain here that the main problem of all this huge mess for both cases, for Karimala and also El Beig, is that the Spanish competent authorities did not react immediately to find the proper and fast solution. Because I want to explain you that when the vessels were on the way to Turkey, still sailing in the Mediterranean Sea, so still going to the direction, the Spanish authorities were informed by the Turkish authorities that the animals will not be accepted in their territorial because of this blue tongue problem, because these animals were coming with a region that was infected with the blue tongue. So from my point of view, it's unacceptable that the Spanish authorities did not inform the captain and the organizer of these two transports. I'm talking about Karimala and El Beig, to come back immediately. So the reaction, it was possible, but they did not inform to anyone, also to the commission. So at the end, the consequences is that the two vessels, they docked in the Turkish port. And the problem is that when we know for our experience, when the vessels or transports arrive to the third country, then it's over, they cannot come back. So this is the problem why everything started. And also, I must say that the two vessels were totally abandoned by the authorities. They tried to go to several ports. They tried also to load food, and they had a lot of complications because the authorities were not supporting them. So only to make it very sure, what for me, it's these two cases are the clear example again that there are no contingency plans. When a EU animal is leaving the EU territorial, the competent authorities lose all possible control, and they cannot ensure the proper conditions and welfare for the animals to arrive to the destination. So this is all. I don't know if you have more questions about what will happen, but this is a short summary.
Thank you, Maria. Yes, in the end, we'll have a time for questions. I will request now to Martina Stefani, Director of the Farm Animal Department, that will update us on the Port of Cartagena. Martina, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that you can hear me well. It's a bit windy. You can see here actually in the back, right behind me, that there are new vessels who are being loaded right now with sheep actually. And we know that since Monday, 5 ships and vessels already left the harbor with a couple of thousands of animals. We have spent the past days on the entrance of the port, and we saw these trucks loaded with cattle and sheep, and it's simply heartbreaking to know that these animals have already a long travel behind them, and now they are facing an uncertain but for sure horrible future. And for us at FORPOS, I mean, I work for FORPOS since 10 years, but it's really heartbreaking to be here. And it's simply, I mean, it really makes me angry to see that this business is just going on as if nothing has happened. And it's very important to us that we don't treat this tragedy as another tragedy that is just like adding to our list of tragedies. This is the sign that the export of live animals has to stop now. And what we really need from the members of the European Parliament is first of all, that we really make sure if these animals die, that it's a peaceful death, it's a humane death, it's euthanasia and not just some kind of killing, because actually we don't know, there is no transparency about how the animals of the Karimala have died last week. And most importantly, of course, we need a ban, starting with Spain and Romania, an immediate ban of these long distance live animal exports. But also, and this is very important to say, I mean, the time of live animal export is over. We really have to face it and we have to name it as it is. And what we really need is that we look into the future of trade, because we can still trade, but we should trade meat and carcasses and semen instead of live animals. And this is already possible, it's already happening. But we need to make sure that Europe is really ready for this new infrastructure with regional slaughterhouses and cooling facilities to make sure that this trade can still happen. So, I mean, just to say it again, it's heartbreaking to be here, to see how this ship right behind me is being loaded with sheep, and to know that it is possible that this sheep and the ship actually faces the same fate as these two vessels in the past weeks, because we don't know exactly what happened. It can happen anytime again, and we really need to stop this now.
Thank you, Martina, for the updates on the spot. Really important to see live what's happening, and that it still continues this transport and this way of industrialized production of food. So I'll pass to Reineke to see if there's any question to our speakers.
Yes, thank you, Francesco. We have a hand up from Telly. Telly, feel free to come in.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much to Maria and also to Martina for giving us the last information. Indeed, we are keeping on writing to the authorities, but we get no real information. So it's very important to have you there and to have you on the spot. So thank you very much for that. So all this shows indeed how important this revision of the regulation is concerning the transport on animals. It's desperate. We know that it's only a symptom of the whole supply chain, food supply chain, you said it, but we really have to put more pressures that we get a change there. I have a question concerning now the animals from the El Beek. I was still a little bit optimistic, talking also to FORPOS, to you, Martina, because at one moment there was the possibility that some foundation or some association like FORPOS or others could maybe have the animals from El Beek in order to bring them to a sanctuary. So if they are not having the blue tongue disease and if they are fit enough, is this still, even if it is a small possibility, that they are not going to be killed and that they are not going to be transported back, or can I forget my last hope that I have there?
Martina, would you?
Yeah.
Maria first, and then Martina.
Yeah, I mean, Martina can reply about this sanctuary issue. I only wanted to say that I see it quite complicated, because the problem is that if these animals are allowed to be unloaded, to go to a sanctuary, for example, means that they can have a certificate, you know what I mean? And then depends on the owner of these animals to decide, okay, I'm selling these animals to an NGO or to someone else, or I'm selling the animals to a third country. So it's quite complicated, because if the animals are fit to transport, means that they can go everywhere, in a slaughterhouse in Spain, in a sanctuary, or in a third country. So it's very delicate issue, but I'm sure that honestly, when I saw the report from the official vets regarding Karimala animals, that we need to remember that this vessel in Karimala, the density, it was very low. If you compare, I don't know if you saw the new images, but the densities of El Beik are very, very high. I'm sure that the animals are in very bad conditions. So I don't believe that the authorities will certificate that the animals are fit. So at the moment, only to explain it very short, but if official vet declared that the animals are not fit to transport, means that they need to be euthanized. There is no option. So I only wanted to explain the technical.
Thank you,
issues.
Maria. And also the proportion of animals that have died is a lot higher at the El Beik than it was at the Karimala. Turning to you, Martina, do you have any thoughts about the feasibility to rescue these animals?
Yeah, because I mean, on the one hand, of course, even if there would be a possibility, I have to say we really need to be careful not to tell this story in the wrong way, because of course we are all feeling very sorry for these poor animals who are still on this vessel for 3 months. But actually, the story is not about these animals. The story that we as NGOs need to tell is the story of live export that needs to stop. And I'm really afraid that if we talk kind of too much about these animals now, it's like a one-time story. But this is not a one-time story. This is an everyday business. And I guess it's really important to say also to our supporters and to our community and to the people who ask us, can you rescue these animals, to say we rescue through lobbying. And this is what we need to do now, because at the end of the day, even if we could rescue some of these animals and make sure that they have a peaceful life, it would not be the end of the story, but we need to tell the end of the story. So that's my answer for now.
I think that is a very good point, Martina. We need to make sure that these animals' lives will count for a much better future. And I think the key challenge now is to avoid that the animals will be re-exported again. This is also something you mentioned, Maria. What could the MEPs and the intergroup do in that respect? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that we need to make pressure to make sure that the official vets that will do the inspection do a proper report, a serious report, and see how it's the condition of the animals. Does not matter if they are having blue tongue or foot and mouth disease. Honestly, I'm sure that they are negative, because a lot of them, only to explain, they were already vaccinated about blue tongue disease, and with foot and mouth disease, if there is on board, all the animals will be almost already dead. You know what I mean? That is a disease that is spreading very fast. So I'm sure that they are free of these two diseases for the reason that transporter want to really do the test. So I think that we need to make pressure that the vets inspect properly the animals and declare them unfit if they are unfit. Again, also, I'm very sad that it's the ending of these animals, the euthanasia, and we need to see how the animals are euthanized. This is another issue that we really need to work on it. But if these animals are sold to Libya, it's even worse, because it means that the journey will continue maybe for a few weeks more, because it means now the animals will be inspected for several days, then they need to wait for the certificate, then they need to be traveling until the destination, and then they will go to the slaughterhouse. So I really suggest and strongly suggest that we avoid this possibility.
Thank you, Maria, for clarifying that for us. And I'm sure that I see Telly taking notes, so perhaps it would be good to have another attempt to contact the Spanish authorities. Martina, will you stay in the port till the El Beik arrives?
Yeah, and I also want to say another thing. I mean, of course, it's important to take Spain accountable for this, but this is not the end of the story, because this is what happened in Romania when the Queen Hind capsized, because there it was clear that Romania was held accountable, but that was it, you know, and it can only be the starting point here. And I agree, absolutely. I guess we all agree that it's not an option to send the animals back on the sea. So as I said, I would just like to say it again, it's really important to take this now to really have an immediate ban on live animal export, to do this now and to start with Spain, because this is happening. And the second thing is really to make sure that the animals are killed in a humane way. And the third thing is we really need to prepare for the future and to make sure that we get this infrastructure with regional slaughterhouses. We need to work on this now to make sure that this is possible in future. And I mean, some companies are doing it already, and actually 4paws is preparing a report about the transport of carcasses and meat and semen instead of live animals. So we can talk more in the next weeks about how this is possible. But let's really make sure that we focus on these things and that we put all the pressure we can on this situation here. What was your other question? Sorry, Reineke.
No, I think this is all very important, Martina, because we know from previous instances that indeed it takes a month, sometimes even a year before a report is out. And meanwhile, the trade just continues. So lessons need to be drawn much sooner. I asked, will you stay in the port till the LBIC arrives tonight?
Yeah, we will stay until the bike arrives, and we also try to make sure that we get pictures of the animals. And we know that it's very hard. We spoke to an investigator who was here last week and tried to film the corpses of the Karimala, and it was not possible because they kind of do this behind the scenes. They put containers around the slaughter facility. So it seems like there is some feeling of doing something wrong because they try to hide it. And this is actually one of the problems, you know. I mean, they should really be fully transparent. And I understand that they don't want to show it to every journalist how this killing is happening, but still at least vets and authorities should be there and should make sure that this is happening in a peaceful way.
Absolutely. I believe that independence and transparency is very important now. I'm looking at the attending MEPs if someone is still interested to come in and ask any questions you may have. If not, I know that Adolfo would like to come in briefly.
Yeah, Reineke, thank you. I would just say that after so many years, I'm still shocked that as Niels and Anja said earlier, nobody seems to be responsible. We've seen this bouncing of responsibilities. It's the member states, it's the Commission. We have a piece of legislation that has been there for 15 years, and we've seen exactly the same things happening again and again. Martina and other colleagues shouldn't be there today. The police should be there. The police should stop those boats. When a dog or a cat or other animals are mistreated in some member states, rightly the owners are forbidden to keep other animals. When thousands of animals are mistreated in live animal transport, these transports carry on going. So my appeal in this moment is to the European Commission. The European Commission should feel the sense of urgency and should feel uncomfortable about having Martina and other colleagues there, because this is the time to stop live animal transport, at least live animal exports. There is clear evidence that there is no way to get the regulation respected once the animals leave the EU territory. This means that if we don't stop it, we are endorsing the fact that breaching the law is something that the European Commission tolerates. So my appeal is to Commissioner Kyriakides, the two campaigns we have presented today, please express your support to them, but please act now to stop live exports in collaboration with the member states, because this is shameful for every single European. Every single proud European is ashamed of this. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Adolfo. Very strong and true words. Francesco, I think we are nearing the end of the session. I would just like to tell everyone that I'm sure that Maria and Martina and all the other NGOs that are active on this tragedy will keep you up to date over the coming hours. But as Martina said, it's very important that we keep this story alive till live export has ended for good. So Francesco, I'm handing back to you for the closure of this meeting.
Thank you, Reineke. Just to record that and remember that the European Union is the biggest exporter of live animals in the world. So this is a huge, huge issue that we really should address here on the European Parliament. So let's continue the work to end the live exportation of animals. And thank you for the wonderful declarations and presentations that are really important for us to keep up with these daring issues. So let's focus on the closing remarks. I'm glad that the campaigns No Animal Left Behind and EU for Animals come at the right political moments of the Commission's fitness check regarding the EU's animal welfare related acquis. These two campaigns will help to clearly show once again that EU citizens expect to see high protection standards for all farmed animals. We all know that there are still serious gaps in the current EU legislation, which leaves millions of terrestrial farmed animals and billions of farmed fish unprotected. There is no specific animal welfare legislation for dairy and beef cattle beyond 6 months old, for farmed and wild caught fish, for sheep and goats, for the parent birds of broiled chickens and laying hens, for pullets, turkeys, ducks and geese, for quails and farmed rabbits. This situation is unbearable and needs the full commitment of EU policymakers to change it. For the sake of animals, we cannot accept any longer outdated EU legislation that is not apt for the purpose and often hardly enforceable. On ethical grounds, it is our duty to change this, and I think we can change this. The EU citizens also want to see that the policy field of animal welfare is given the status and consideration it deserves. Therefore, it is more than legitimate that to request that animal welfare appears as a fully fledged policy field in the job title of the relevant EU commissioner. I hope that in the next future we will all be able to see EU Commissioner for Health, Food Security and Animal Welfare during an intergroup meeting. I warmly invite in particular Commissioner Kyriakis to express his support to proposals made in the EU campaigns EU for Animals and No Animals Left Behind. I also encourage, again, all MEPs of the intergroup and all colleagues in the House to wholeheartedly support both campaigns and to concretely help with the promotion of the objectives raised. I am sure the coordinators of these two campaigns will be glad to assist us all in this task. So to conclude, just briefly, I wanted to inform you about the upcoming meetings of the Animal Welfare Intergroup. First of all, on Tuesday, 23rd of March, from midday to 1, the Intergroup will have a working group session for all MEPs interested to hear more about the system of production labeling. You will soon receive an invitation for this. And on Wednesday, the 21st of April, from 10 to 11:30, the Intergroup will hold its monthly session on better regulating the online trade of companion animals in the context of the current discussed proposals of Digital Service Acts. So thank you very much for being here. See you all soon and all the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.